Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 54. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday. Steelers Nation. The Pittsburgh Steelers are coming off their fifth loss of the season, 31-28 against the Chicago Bears. Sunday at Soldier Field, Pittsburgh, 6-5 on this season, and while their record is now identical to the Baltimore Ravens, technically the Ravens are in first place of the AFC North, and so they have stormed essentially all the way back. Pittsburgh in a back-and-forth game, a game the Steelers certainly could have won, but a game where they did not make plays in the end and fell short of getting in the field goal range to have a potential game-tying kick by Chris Boswell. So a frustrating loss on a lot of levels. Dave, how you doing?
Yeah, good morning. Happy Monday, or is it? But I'm not going to let this gloom, despair, and agony ruin what is my favorite week of the season. Thanksgiving is by far my favorite holiday of the year. I'm looking forward to it. We've already got the honey baked ham order put in, and I think she's going to go pick that up in a day or two here. So, but yeah, and I tweeted it out this morning here. It's pretty amazing that the Steelers, late in the game, essentially are one late drive away from tying up this game and all. But the game really wasn't. Yeah, I put it more on the Bears on allowing it to be as close as it was. I thought Caleb Williams, and I guess I'm automatically going into kind of my 30,000-foot view of this thing, but I thought Caleb Williams played a good game. I think he made a lot of throws, but I think he left a lot of throws on the table. So if you're a Bears fan and you're somehow stumbled across this, I think you look at that as man, he did a lot of good in this game, but there is still another level if he starts hitting some of these throws that he could have potentially had in this game. But they let the Steelers hang around, so to speak, and Mike Tomlin, I know, will try to boil this down to, we final two possessions, we had a chance to potentially tie or win this game, and we just didn't. I look at it a little bit different than that. You're not even in that position if you play better football, specifically on a defensive side for most of the game there, but. Loss is a loss is a loss. You are what your record says you are. You are what your adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat says you are right now. And on both sides of the ball, that's 6.1. I tweeted it out last week during the game. This is a mid team. I still stand by that. This is a very mid team, and it's hard to be optimistic when you look at the schedule moving forward on into the final 6 games or so here, and you look at the opponents and all like that. So no longer the 4th seed in the AFC. They're now the 8th seed. They have lost control of the AFC North. And it is a lot of gloom, despair, and agony, I think, as we sit here right now.
Yeah, I think you make it a good point when you look at this team big picture beyond this game, and I don't often agree with Jay Gruden, but I think he made a salient observation coming into this game of what do the Pittsburgh Steelers do that really scare you on a consistent basis. I think Pittsburgh can make plays in moments in time. It speaks to their continued inconsistency across the board, whether that's the trench play or certainly the play of the defense overall. But what is the one thing they do week in and week out that says that's a major threat that must be accounted for? I struggle to find that answer. For yesterday, it came down to the pass game for me. Mason Rudolph, of course, getting the start for Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers inactive. He did not dress. He did not play. Rudolph, in some ways, managed the game well, but his calling card, pushing the ball vertically, was not there. And the Bears made some plays downfield and certainly left some on the table. As you indicated, Caleb Williams was inaccurate and often his own best and worst defense, where Pittsburgh didn't cover things, but Williams just flat out missed it. But to me, that was the difference. The Bears got more splash and chunk in the pass game. Pittsburgh did not, and that led to the loss.
Yeah, look, we talked about it. Should Mason Rudolph wind up for whatever reason starting and this game against the Bears, that we expected him to take a few more shots down the field. Yeah, he did overall. His intended air yard average was 6.36 overall, but his completed air yard average was 2.29 yards. And for those that wonder how that's calculated, if you throw the football behind the line of scrimmage and it's completed, say 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage, that goes down as a completed air yard distance of -6. And conversely, if you throw the football down the field and you complete it 15 yards down the field, that's a 15-yard, air yard distance there. And then you take all these completions together. Look, he had a high completion percentage, but you should, when most of your throws are less or fewer than 10 yards down the field. But he tried. He wasn't close really on any of them. The first one I think was maybe the closest, and then that was intercepted. It was an underthrown ball, so to speak, and a nice interception by the Bears defensive back. So two plays into the game, you have your first turnover of the game, as a byproduct of trying to push the football down the field. And you look at the Steelers overall this season, regardless of if it's Rodgers or Mason Rudolph in there, this team has the lowest intended air yard average in the NFL, and obviously the lowest completed air yard distance in the NFL. If you are unable to push the football down the field more than 3.5 yards, or more than 3.5 yards, which I think is about the stat for them, and you're not doing a lot of other things consistently well, and you don't have Patrick Mahomes to bail you out on some of these, extended plays and using his feet and all, it's going to make for, a hard week in and week out process. And this team struggles to get explosive plays. It struggles to get even plays of 10 yards or longer. They were able to convert some third downs, but it's just not enough. At some point during the game, you've got to be able to push the football down the field, and this is an offense that's relied heavily on yards after the catch that we've noted all season here. And even though they had, I think, like 116 yards after the catch against the Bears, when you look in totality of what they had just in total net yards in the game and passing yards in particular of just 171, it wasn't enough. Yes, they ran the football fairly well, specifically in the first half there. A lot of that came on the, I guess, kind of trick tush push, if you want to call it that, play. But even so, you popped a big play there, and even though they were able to run the football well, they weren't able to push the football down the field overall. And once again, 8 of 14 on third down. That looks great on paper. Their net rushing yards was 186. That looks great on paper, but the lack of passing game and being able to push the football down the field is what really has handcuffed, I think, this offense overall.
And I want to get into our sponsor touring plans and the housekeeping to talk about the injuries and Rodgers' status and all that, but not to leave the defense out of it, which I know neither of us are doing. The defense had as many problems too. This was a three-phase loss. Pittsburgh was, I think, outplayed in probably all three phases, offensively, defensively, certainly, and special teams too. Corliss Waitman's worst game of the season had a muff kickoff that Kenneth Gainwell couldn't handle. The Bears did a great job with those kind of number kickoffs that Pittsburgh really had a tough time with, and really backed their offense that was already struggling up, even though Pittsburgh overcame that Gainwell muff and drove with their best drive maybe the entire season. But defensively, TJ Watt had the impact play, the sack fumble. Nick Herbig recovered. That was big. But other than that, no other pressure in this game. That was the only quarterback hit, only sack the entire defense had on Caleb Williams the entire game, who played from the pocket, had the middle of the field, wide open for most of this game. terrible schematic issues on multiple Chicago's touchdowns. So this was, to me, a true three-phase type of loss.
Yeah, and look, what did we talk about with Caleb Williams the other day as a preview and all like that? You know, do you blitz him? Do you don't not blitz him? The key to Caleb Williams was and it starts on first and second down as well too. The Bears do such a good job of making sure they stay balanced and leaning on the run and having at least enough success with the run to put them in second and manageable type situations there. But the key thing, going into this game was just getting consistent pressure on Caleb Williams, not necessarily through the blitz or whatnot, but just some sort of pressure, and they were just unable to do that as a whole. And you make a good point. He was able to play from the pocket quite a bit. He didn't feel, as rushed. And look, once again, if Caleb makes another 3 or 4 throws in this game, this game's a lot more lopsided, it feels like, there.
Mm-hmm.
And in the instances, and we talked about this too, heading into the game, was, containing him. And look, yeah, probably not a guy that really is going to hurt you with his feet overall consistently throughout the game. But when he did get outside the pocket and he did run, and then I think they even had a design run on one of those fourth downs there. He did more than enough, and you weren't able to contain him on the few times that he got out of the pocket there, either there. So yeah, this was a colossal three-phase loss. I mean, and we'll get into it a little bit later. Even the special teams had a nice hand in this one, I felt as well too, here. But yeah, and once again, I think it's kind of amazing and not in a good way that this team still had a chance late in the ball game, one possession to go down and tie or
Mm-hmm.
potentially win the game.
Yeah, multiple fourth quarter possessions just needing to tie and close to range and just could not get there. So, Dave, before we get into the housekeeping portion, it's presented by our Monday sponsor every Monday on the podcast, touringplans.com. So, this is not exactly a happy place coming off a Steelers loss, but if you want to go to a happy place, to Disney World or Disneyland or Disney Cruise Lines, check out touringplans.com. They will get you prepared and be your co pilot to help you plan your trip and then enjoy your adventure to the happiest places on earth. So restaurant reviews, how to save money on tickets, which I know are rising year by year. I think they're going up another 5% or so for 2026, I think was a recent report. When the parks are the least busy and line times and all those important information that you need to know if you're a first time goer or even a veteran to Disney, have Touring Plans be your co-pilots. Check out the website touringplans.com, and they have an app as well. I know you've touted a lot, Dave, so check that out. And we thank them for their continued support of our Monday housekeeping and the terrible podcast. All right, Dave, let's get into the housekeeping section before we dive back into this 31-28 loss. Of course, the big headline from the housekeeping aspect is Aaron Rodgers did not play. We found out about 2 hours before kickoff Sunday that Mason Rudolph would start. Mike Tomlin confirming that. Tomlin later saying that he told Rodgers and Mason Rudolph on Saturday that Rudolph would get the nod. Rodgers did not even dress as the emergency third-string quarterback. He was a full, true blue, inactive. Will Howard was the backup, but not needed in this game. Alex Highsmith also among the inactives, and I just closed out of the other ones in this game. Let me pull it back up. Darius Slay did play. Cam Hayward, who popped up late week with an ankle injury, was in a walking boot, caused some concern from Steeler fans. He played and looked no worse for wear overall, but let me rattle off
Yeah,
the list.
Andres Pete was inactive again, and Logan Lee and Broderick Martin Rhodes.
Right, so
5
we
inactives.
try to get Highsmith back. Pittsburgh did not make any elevations or roster moves before the game. I think the first time all season they have not done that with anybody, but Pittsburgh having enough health even without Rodgers and Highsmith, who will look to get back for the Bills game. Tomlin saying post-game he expects Rodgers to return for Buffalo in Week 13. In-game injuries, a couple to note here with Joey Porter Jr. with a hip flexor. That might be the most notable one. Broderick Jones with a stinger that happened late in the game. And what was the third injury? I think there was one other one that
Changed Pierre, but he returned, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it was it Pierre? It was very late. It was a very weird thing because he didn't even miss a snap. I don't think so. Let me just double check here. My article, and because I got lost here talking about this game. So it was Porter and then Darius Slay, who had not been playing. He came in. It was DK Metcalf that battled that ankle injury
Metcalf, yeah.
throughout the game. Now, he finished it out, but he was clearly straining and re-injured it when Johnny Smith rolled up on it in game. But, probably going to play against Buffalo, even though he may miss some time early in the week of practice. And Calvin Anderson replacing Broderick Jones for his first offensive snaps of the season. Okay, Dave, that is the housekeeping. Chicago winning this one 31-28. Pittsburgh's last drive had a 4th and 6 at just inside midfield, just a couple yards away from Chris Boswell range, and Rudolph's pass batted at the line of scrimmage, incomplete, and that was all she wrote. So where should we start here? Offense, defense. I think we should start on the defense, Dave, because this unit continues to underwhelm and disappoint. 31 points allowed in this one, the 5th time this year. Pittsburgh has allowed 30-plus points in a season for a defense that had such high expectations, such pedigree, potential, we thought, has really fallen apart here. And while the run defense had its moments and the defense had a defensive touchdown, which was big, there were still too many issues in this game.
Yeah, there were. And overall, they did an okay job against the run, I thought, but still it allowed, the Bears were consistent enough with the run and creative enough in the run, and were able to lean enough on the run to put them in favorable situations overall. So, you gave up, let's see, total of 99, I guess technically 100 net yards rushing, because Caleb had -1 on the final kneel down there. So I hope somebody wasn't looking to get paid on 100 yards rushing there. But look, for the runs that they had, to hold them to 99, 100 yards, I think that was okay. It was just the rest of it that was really, really muddy, and specifically, down in the red zone there, you allow this Bears offense to go 3 for 3 inside the red zone. They were 2 for 2 in goal to go situations. They were 7 of 13 on third downs overall. Just the touchdown plays in particular were a bit head scratchers, and specifically the free play with Jack Sawyer, even throwing out that aspect of there, they motion into a 3-by-1 type situation there, and the Steelers, for whatever reason, just seemed like a spot drop cover 3 there, and against 4 verts in that situation, and it was chess versus checkers in that situation. You're not going to cover that in that situation. And if you don't get any pressure whatsoever, which the Steelers didn't, you have a wide ass open TD, and really could have gone either way. Felt like in the two seam areas, but obviously hit the most vertical running guy that was the most wide open for a very easy touchdown in that situation there. And the other aspect of this, I think, which was very kind of disturbing, and there was a lot of it on the defensive side of football, but late in the first half as well too. Did the Steelers just not know what the down and distance
Mhm.
was? Did they think it was 3rd and 10 on a 3rd and 5 situation? They were playing almost like their picket fence was at the 10-yard mark when only the Bears needed 5 yards. And look, you go back, I think like um, the 2 plays prior to that too, they were giving up that underneath uh, slant or crosser, if you will, in those situations. They were almost like saying, "Okay, take your 5 or 6 yards here. We feel like we can keep you out of field goal distance, or whatever." They were almost like the defense was resigned to the fact that, okay, we'll give you the 3 here
Right.
in this situation. And why? And you hate to fast forward and look at big picture here and what the final score was here, but that, you lost by 3 points, and you were essentially telling this Bears offense late in the first half, go ahead and get your 3 points. And they obviously did, and they ran all the clock off in the situation here. So that that was just a microcosm uh of this thing that, we talked about the one long touchdown there. We talked about the third down, or, really multiple plays there to close out the first half there. And once again, the difference in this game, and you look at Caleb Williams overall, uh, 19 of 35 for, just look at that alone. They had 14 plays of 10 yards or longer, and 12 of those were passes. So 12 of his 19 completions they continually tried to push the football down the field, and when they hit, they hit for 10 yards or longer. And I think those 14 plays consisted of 200, and I forget what the stat was, 200 something of their 345 net yards. I think it was almost 100 yards short of their net yards of the game. So even though you held the completion percentage down, which once again, Caleb Williams missed some throws in this game, which would have even, made the yardage a lot more lopsided in this one. The Steelers' pass defense and the ability to get pressure was just really non-existent. It really is like Ben Johnson just kind of knew what to expect in certain situations here, especially, I don't know, midway from the first quarter on in here, and the Steelers never really adjusted to it.
Well said. And there's a lot of layers here, obviously, and we got to watch the All 22, which I don't think is even fully out yet as of this recording. I know I have not been able to dive into a lick of that. I charted the defense last night, so I have gone back through that tape again from the TV view, but individual and schematic problems. But I always start kind of with the scheme, and there were so many, not even just breakdowns, but just bad plan. It wasn't there was a bunch of miscommunication that seemed like Pittsburgh was completely out of sorts, but as you said on the DJ Moore 25-yard touchdown that gave the Bears a lead they would not give back, it's a math problem. You're running cover 3 spot chop against 4 verts, and 4 verts is going to beat cover 3 every single time when you don't match it. And that's literally why match coverage was created by Nick Saban, by Bill Belichick in Cleveland in the 90s, ironically enough, because Pittsburgh would run 4 verts against Saban's cover 3 and toast it each time. And the Browns had to figure out some way to combat that. And in match coverages, you base your assignments defensively based on the route combinations that you get, and they can vary depending on what the offense does. It's a combination of man and zone where you're not specific to a man, but you're not just dropping to a landmark like spot drop, classic country zone coverage. And Pittsburgh is playing some of this antiquated stuff here that gets completely outclassed by really innovative and smart offensive minds like Ben Johnson and talented quarterbacks like Caleb Williams. You had the Monangai touchdown where Pittsburgh's a nickel on 3rd and goal from the 2. I know that's because Chicago's in 11 personnel and 3 receivers, but as we just talked about, I think on the Friday show, there's been a great debate and kind of a change by defensive coaches to not always respond one-to-one to personnel and respond to down and distance and situation. And so you have 2 defensive linemen and kind of your pass down guys on the goal line, essentially, and the Bears get a great push and easily walk the ball into the end zone there. And then, as you said, on that end of half drive, which was so critical, it's 3rd and 10, and Pittsburgh has everyone 10 yards, or 3rd and 5, excuse me, and you have every Steeler defender 10 yards plus off the ball. It's an easy pitch and catch to convert that. So there's a lot of schematic things that really were confounding in this game.
Even on that 3rd and 5 play, I tweeted out 3rd and 10, and they allowed them to convert it because just looking at it live, you would assume that it was 3rd and 10 the way they played it.
You would assume it was like 3rd and 20 where you're just playing like this picket fence sticks defense.
Yeah, and then watched a couple of plays before that as well too. They just switch formation and sides really, and continually allow the Bears, like I said, formation and but they pretty much ran the same concept. And if you look, the underneath's open in those as well too. It's almost like the Steelers said, we're going to really, really simplify this defensive plan, make it super easy, and we're just going to bet that Caleb can't make some of these plays.
Well, like you said, it almost was like Pittsburgh just said, take the field goal. We don't want to give up the touchdown, so take your 3 points, and we'll go into half that way, which is insane.
Yeah, they so concentrated on not giving up something up over your head, that you just give them up everything else up underneath there. And that end of the half there, once again, that's not the end all why you lost the game there, but there's just no sense in that situation to just essentially give them 3 points, which they did. And you never know how the game's going to play out from that point forward, but you lost.
I just to interject just quickly. I know the Bears ended the half, I think, against Minnesota last week. They did come out with some vertical shots, and so I know there is that fear, but still third and
Right.
5. You gotta play that. Watch how aggressively Chicago ended up playing Pittsburgh at the end of the game. They came out playing pretty soft, but then once Pittsburgh got to about midfield, Bears came out tight man coverage, press man. We're not going to give you anything easy. And Pittsburgh had the opposite approach at the end of the first half.
Yeah, I mean, and the Steelers had no answer for it late anyway. And as you pointed out, even I hate to jump ahead to the last offensive play of the game, but even if that ball's not batted down, it's not getting completed. If anything, it's going for maybe a pick six the other way.
Yeah.
There, if that gets off clean there, they they were just out-coached, out-schemed throughout this thing. And once again, it's surprising that it ended up being a 3-point game, and I don't mean that in a positive sense there. And look, yeah, that this team is who they are, and we've said it for several weeks now. The Steelers are like a box of chocolates. You just never know what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis, and even on the weeks that they win, it's just it was just more identifiable pieces of chocolate mixed in, throughout the game there. So, uh, very disturbing on the defensive side of football, even though they did okay against the run overall. But the real difference and the real hidden yardage, or hidden aspect of this game, I think, was the fact that once again the Bears hit 14 plays of 10 yards or longer in this game, and those totaled up to a significant portion of their total net yards in this game. And the Steelers on the other side, struggled to get 10 yards at a time.
How many of those completions of Caleb Williams, 19 in total, came middle of the field, 10 yards plus? Can you pull up his passing chart? I had not even seen it. I saw Rudolph's passing chart, but I want to know how many from Williams, because certainly Pittsburgh built very soft over the middle of the field, playing a lot of zone. Again, had to see the all 22 to really digest and make sense of it all. But Williams missed a lot over the middle that he should have hit, but then he did hit a couple downfield that certainly produced those 10-plus yard gains you're talking about.
Well, I'll DM you the chart that I put up last night there, but look, he was pretty much concentrated. If you look at just his passing chart in total, he stayed for the most part inside the numbers.
Let me look at it here. Yeah, there's nothing to the left side.
Look at that. Look how crazy that is. I mean, yeah, there was I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of his pass attempts technically outside the numbers.
Yeah, it was certainly to the right side generally and to the middle of the field between 10 and or maybe 5 and 20 yards. And it was really successful. All 3 touchdowns came in fairly similar spots. Right side, 2 of them short, and then the one down the seam to a wide open DJ Moore. So Pittsburgh could not really adjust, and Chicago knew where to butter their bread.
And you look at those 3 past 10 yards, how many of those were just inaccurate throws that probably could have been completed? I guess 4 in total. I see another white one there about the 20-yard mark there. But how many? One of those was which one of those was the one that Duggar probably should have or had an attempt on intercepting?
That was right side end of the half, and that was a big missed chance there for Duggar, where that pass sailed and it hits Duggar right in the hands, and he drops it. And then Chicago comes away with 3 points. So talk about some dropped interceptions. Think back to the Chargers game, Joey Porter Jr. dropping one, Duggar potentially having one off the tip. It was a tough play, but certainly possible. Duggar had the great pick 6. It was thrown right to him. You got to make more plays than just the ones where the ball gets thrown right into your lap.
Boy, you'd about kill to see a Steelers passing chart look like this, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't know what to do with it. It feels like a mirage
You
almost, like I'm in the desert.
think somebody made a mistake. Next gen stats, something wrong with the computers or something like that.
Right, right.
Uh, yeah, they were pretty much saying take the middle of the field. You know that's what the TV tape and this passing chart shows you, and he did.
Now, the defense did bow up in moments. They got 2 3-and-outs at the end of this game and really saved Mike Tomlin from intense scrutiny after deciding to punt on 4th down. We can talk about that more maybe with the offense a little bit later in the show. So the defense did rise up in some moments. TJ Watt had the strip sack fumble, and we talk about scout team looks and the value of John Rice Plumlee giving those good looks during the week and the hidden value of practice squatters that really play a impactful part in getting this team prepared for the game. And Caleb Williams tried to scramble out to a degree and tried to throw the football away to avoid the safety, fumbled instead, and Nick Herbig jumped on it for the touchdown. So TJ Watt passing big brother JJ Watt for most sacks in the family household name. And that was a really impactful play. The defense, the run defense overall was good. DeAndre Swift had no running room. The Bears ran for 100 yards. We'll give him. We won't count the kneel down by Caleb at the end. It took them down to double digits, but those were some positives. But it kind of felt a little Packers game where the Steelers, they stuffed the run pretty well. They really had no answers against the pass.
Mhm. I was 1 week off from my TJ Watt forcing a fumble that Herbig
Oh
scored.
yeah, you're still trying to get that prediction. You're trying to get extra points on this. Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see. I see.
What else about you? You've already charted this. I haven't looked at it. How many times were they able to get the 3 outside linebacker package on the field?
The rush package.
Yeah.
One time, I believe they
Okay.
only actually used maybe 2. I think technically the spike the Bears had, they subbed out Wilson for Sawyer for some reason, but let's not even count that because it wasn't really even a play. It was, I think, one time. They did run the 3, kind of call it the 2-5 big with the 3 inside linebackers being Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, Malik Harrison. That was run frequently against the Bears 12 personnel and 13 personnel, so that was leaned on quite a bit, but that's not the rush package you're talking about. So yeah, they did not really get to utilize that package hardly at all of getting their pass rushers and their speed on the field in this one.
How many times did they blitz him?
I can try to pull it up here.
Looks
Not
like
a ton.
26.3% of the time he was blitzed.
That sounds roughly right. And again, sometimes these are green dogs and things like that that might get put down as blitz depending on whatever outlet that is that's calculating it. But the pressure was just not there. I'm just looking at, let me try to pull up the pressure rate here if I can do that on the real quick fly. But there really was not anything sustained outside of the Watt play. So I got 38 total pass attempts. How much pressure? I got pressure on 5 of those plays, which is really, really bad. That is 13% pressure rate, which is just a terrible number for the Steelers defense.
Let me see if I can get this
I got
here.
3 pressures by Watt, 1 by Malik Harrison, 1 by Herbig, 1 by Queen, 1 by Hayward. Now, sometimes there's multiple pressures on the same play, so that's why the numbers aren't necessarily matching. Herbig and Hayward had 1 on the same play, and I got Queen and Watt with 1 on the same play. So just for clarification, but 5 snaps where I have a charted pressure, and of course, just the 1 sack and just the 1 quarterback hit. Jalen Ramsey hit Williams harder than any Steelers pass rusher basically in this game on that 4th down play where Ramsey shoved Williams out of bounds.
Next Gen Stats has updated Caleb Williams as facing a 15.8% pressure rate, the lowest pressure rate he has faced all season. Also, his time to throw, snap to throw time against the Steelers was 2.68. That is his second quickest of the season. He had against the Commanders in week 6 a time to throw of 2.65, only slightly quicker. So once again, as we've seen, get the ball out quick against against the Steelers. When you can there, but the pressure rate is a bit disturbing, especially since we said, hey, whether you blitz or not, it isn't the biggest. And look, even his blitz percentage, it looks like, for the Steelers was the second lowest blitz percentage that Caleb Williams has faced this season. Okay, that's fine, but the pressure rate, we said it, regardless of you blitz or not, the way you can really impact Caleb Williams is get pressure on him, right? And for it to be a 15.8% pressure rate, the lowest he's faced all season, that's a recipe for not getting it done against him and those wide receivers he has.
And the Bears were down some offensive linemen, which they had not experienced this year. Their left tackle was out for the game. They had a rookie starting, Trapio, at left tackle. Jonah Jackson went down midway through. I don't know if he returned or not, but he missed at least some portion of time. So I know when you're playing Caleb Williams, there's a balance between needing to rush and contain him, which I'm sure was a big point of emphasis. And he really did not have any of those crazy out of structure scramble plays that he's pretty commonly known for. The one attempt he did was basically Watt's strip sack fumble touchdown. So I know there's a line to walk there, but you got to get pressure. That's how Pittsburgh wins. They did not. And they also did not get their hands up in throwing lanes. Williams really ripped the ball over the middle of the field well. The touchdowns to Loveland and DJ Moore, the first one at least, opportunities where linebackers are dropping and just close, but not close enough to tipping the ball, and the D line not getting bats, which they're common to do this season. And so when you can't get home, when the ball does come out quick, as it did for Williams, you got to get your hands up and tip some passes, and Pittsburgh could not do that either.
His 54.3 completion percentage was his second lowest of the season too. And once again, when he you look at that overall, I think 19 to 35 is not great, which it's not technically, but when he did complete passes, they were down the field.
What was his average yards per completion in this one? 239 on 19 attempts is 12.6 yards. So that's a pretty healthy yards per completion. Comparatively, Mason Rudolph, just for reference, 171 on 24 was 7.1. So Williams closing in on doubling that figure.
His turnover-worthy throw percentage, 2.9%, the lowest it's been all season for him.
And the one you could have gotten was the Duggar dropped interception, which certainly could have changed that game. So Duggar took some lumps in this one. We talked about you can't let those young Bears players that had been ascending, like Loveland and Burden, continue to ascend, and they did. Loveland had the touchdown on Duggar, tough play, nice route, kind of stem to the outside, break it back in, but Duggar got to be more competitive there. And then Burden had that one screen at the end of the first half that really got them in the comfortable field goal range, 3 catches for 46 yards. He didn't kill you, but he had a couple plays as well. So those young guys continued making plays for Chicago, and that was certainly something Pittsburgh wanted to prevent and could not.
Yep. Let me see if I got that complete stat on the 14 plays. And I think we went into this game as well too with this Bears team being one of the best at creating plays, getting plays of 10 yards or longer on the season, and that's what they've kind of been living on. The Bears had 14 plays that gained 10 yards or more. Only 2 were runs. Those 14 plays resulted in 225 yards, and their offense totaled 328 net yards.
And Burden, by the way, had one of those runs, a reverse for 15 yards right sideline. So Burden making an impact in the run game as well. The run defense, again, generally good enough against a really tough Bears rushing attack, but the pass game continues to have few answers.
Right. Did you ever get a good look at the second takeaway by Y.A. Black? I don't know how they determined that one.
I think you need X-ray vision to see through that pile. I still don't know what the heck happened there. All I knew is that Pittsburgh came away with a football and Y.A. Black had it in his belly. So I don't know if that's the gravitational pull that Y.A. Black is, how massive that guy is, but something happened in the pile there. And once Pittsburgh had it, you knew they weren't going to overturn it because you couldn't see anything. So it just, whatever was ruled on the field was going to be the final ruling. So I still yet have zero idea what occurred or how that occurred, but happy that it occurred.
And the sad thing about that is you get another takeaway. You have, another technically another takeaway in the game right after having the strip 6 by Watt there, and you go 5 plays and turn it over on downs. So you
Yeah.
got 0 points off of that takeaway there.
Just one piece of NFL news, if I could interject just ever so briefly. Justin Tucker has his first tryout. The Saints are working him out today, according to Ian Rappaport. So the controversial and suspended, now off suspension, Justin Tucker trying to get back into the NFL.
All right.
Back to this game here. Any other thoughts here defensively? It really came down to that lack of pass rush, lack of pressure in the middle of the field plays, and those schematic qualms that I have with Terrell Austin, Mike Tomlin, this overall game plan.
All right. James Pierre started, right?
And played every single snap, I think, in this game, except maybe if he missed one from injury, which I'm not even sure if he did or not. So despite Mike Tomlin saying that Darius Slay would play, he only played once Joey Porter Jr. was injured. Now, Slay, I think, was limited on Friday and was initially listed as questionable on the final injury report before being upgraded alongside Cam Hayward Saturday to no game status, expected to play. Tomlin saying post-game that kind of hinting that a lack of reps there for Slay was a reason why he wasn't super involved and really was a backup until Porter left on 2 separate occasions. But yeah, it was clear that Pierre was going to be the guy in this game.
And Pierre made a couple of plays in this game as well, too. A nice breakup over there on the sideline on one of them there. He played 64 of 65 snaps, Alex, 98%.
Okay, yeah, Pierre had that really good punch out. So I think Pierre continues to play some pretty good football.
Darius Slay played 20 snaps on defense.
And his snaps at least seem to be inoffensive. I had no issues that I can see live about him. I don't think he was even targeted in this game. I think whenever he came in, the Bears were kind of running the ball pretty late in this one, so there wasn't a whole lot of action for him. But we'll see what it looks like. We'll see what Porter's status is, I guess, for this Bills game, and go from there.
Yeah, we'll see with that hip flexor that he's dealing with there. Okay, what else? Defense, just an underwhelming performance overall.
Yep. Yeah, and do you blame the answer to this is going to be the Dave Classic, yes, but is this more on individual issues? Is this more schematic issues? Where does blame primarily reside?
I tell you, it certainly didn't feel like some of the calls and some of the scheming helped this unit out. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I agree.
I really tend to put a little bit more on coaching on this one than I do the players.
I agree. I think you're right about that. Obviously, there's going to be blame for both, and there's always a marriage of game plan and execution that must exist positively to have good outcomes and to play well. But I think Pittsburgh fell short in both areas, beginning with a game plan that was not up to the task.
It's almost like they just tried to go too simple,
I don't know if it was too simple. I mean, I think they had a lot of stuff going through my charting. They really rarely repeated groupings, and they rotated in some people and had the big linebacker package. But again, in some ways, there was that simplicity on the touchdown to DJ Moore. And I know Patrick Queen, we should talk about that post-game, talked about, well, we don't know, because Sawyer was offsides on that play and the Bears are responding with 4 verts. Maybe they wouldn't have run 4 verts there if we didn't jump off sides. That may be true. It probably is true, but that's the whole point of coverage is you never know what an offense is going to do. And you must have answers defensively to anything an offense presents you. If this is something an offense can do that you don't have an answer for, that's a bad plan. That's what coaching is all about. So whether it's intentional or not, they ran 4 verts. You're not matching that, and you're getting burned by pretty basic math. Again, 3 covering 4. But Queen post-game, it's hard for us to really hammer home the point from this audio format, but his facial expressions talking about the schematic issues of this game reminded me very much of Najee Harris talking about Matt Canada in his final games as the Steelers OC back in 2023. This kind of pained, my face says it all, even though I'm not going to say the words because I know I can't be that super critical of it, but Queen certainly seemed to be frustrated by the plan in this game.
Yeah, and T.J. Watt as well too. After the loss, said the margin for error is slim. This National Football League, we have a lot of things to fix quickly, and we need to be playing our best football at this stretch of the season. We need to get better and get better quick. Yeah, good luck with that, especially with some of. Look, I mean, you worry about some of these offensive-minded gurus, I guess, if you will, coaching staff. What's going to happen against Miami? We all been kind of chalking that up as maybe a potential win for the Steelers. That's an offense that if you're careful, if you get a half decent version, good version of Tua that's not throwing interceptions, they can do exactly to you what the Bears did to you.
Sure, the Dolphins can be explosive. There really is. Even the Browns' offense may not be as "quote unquote" easy if Shador is going to remain the starter, because Shador can push the ball down the field. He can make some big plays. When you face Dylan Gabriel, it's all just within the 10-yard window. It's just playing the Steelers' offense all over again. So there really aren't a lot of "quote unquote" easy offenses the rest of the way. Nothing's ever easy in the NFL, but even the Browns might be more difficult than we thought a couple weeks ago.
I mean, just look at the quarterbacks that you're going to face here from the rest way out. You got Josh Allen, you got Lamar Jackson, you got Tua, you got Goff, right? I mean, that's
Yep.
just your next 4 games, and your season's going to be decided pretty much in these next 4 games, right?
Yeah, and the 2 games against Baltimore, the one at the end of the season, but
That
obviously the one
last
here in
one
2
might
weeks.
not even mean anything, you know?
Fair. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge. But yeah, certainly this upcoming stretch is defining and difficult.
Right.
All right, Dave, let's go over to the offensive side of the football. Mason Rudolph getting the nod, 24-31 for $171, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, sacked twice. Did have what appeared to be a passing touchdown to DK Metcalf in the flat that was later reversed and called a lateral because the ball was thrown backwards technically. So a rushing touchdown for DK Metcalf. So you could, in theory, give Rudolph a second passing touchdown. But those are the stats. There was an element of managing the game well. There were moments of some really good schemes and play calls. That 95-yard drive was really a thing of beauty. 13 plays, 6 different guys touching the football. But to sound like a broken record and to kind of echo what you said earlier, a lack of the downfield passing game. Anything beyond 10 yards was just non-existent for Pittsburgh. And Rudolph did try some more vertical shots, which we have not seen in this offense too often this season, but he was abysmal throwing downfield, starting with that first play of the game, the pick by Nashawn Wright. Really no connections downfield. Your one positive play was the 27-yard, I think, pass interference call called against Chicago, intended for Calvin Austin. So just a lot of misses. Rudolph nearly threw a second pick downfield that Roman Wilson had to bat away. Rudolph just really looked abysmal throwing the ball and pushing it vertically.
Yeah, and one of them even was not even close. It flew out of bounds on one of those deep passes
To
that he had.
Wilson, yeah.
There. So not, the deep ball, credit for trying to push the football down the field. He just was not effective in doing it. And they could continue to I mean, it's almost like rubber stamping some of these passing charts for the last 5 years. It feels like when you look at the middle of the field and how they attack. And yeah, you're not going to attack against middle field and close and all like that. But even sometimes when the middle of the field is open, I the best pass that he threw was the touchdown to Freiermuth, I think.
Yeah, that was a good ball. I'm not super mad they didn't attack the deep middle because you got Kevin Byard there with 5 interceptions. This kind of reminds me when you played Jesse Bates in Atlanta week 1 last year. It was, we're not going to really test his airspace. So I'm not upset about attacking the sidelines. The Bears did not bring back their top cornerbacks. I was surprised that Jalen Johnson was not activated and did not play in this game. Same with Kyler Gordon. They lose Tyreek Stevenson, I think, relatively early in this one. So I was fine with going vertical and outside the numbers. That's Rudolph's bread and butter. You had some guys who could do it. You had some speed facing some backup corners in Chicago. You just had to execute that, and Rudolph simply could not. Normally, he's good at that. Normally, his strength is throwing downfield and throwing back shoulder fades and putting the ball up and giving his guys a chance, but he was just completely off from literally his first pass attempt vertically in this game.
Yeah, that's something we forgot to get to in the touring plans housekeeping section as well too. That the Bears were down. I mean, several players, especially on the defensive side of the football there with their linebacker, top three linebackers out. They ended up not activating two of their cornerbacks, and obviously one of their top one, and Jalen Johnson there as well too. And uh, it the inability of Mason Rudolph to be able to attack and throw downfield. And look, I thought the running game for the most part was good for the Steelers, and I like the usage of Spencer Anderson, and they mixed it up
Yeah.
with him, put him in the backfield quite a bit as a little bit of wrinkle there. I like that. I think they had success with that. They were able to run the football in this game, and they should have been able to. We talked about how as banged up as they were and all, and just the history against that or what that defense has put on tape all season. They've been run on quite a few times, and it was quite you were going to be quite discouraged if the Steelers didn't have the kind of run success. Now, their first half run success was a lot better than their second half run success, though, as well too there. So, and in a close game, as the game goes on, you kind of thought that the run game would be a little bit better. They played Ben Skoranek a lot of snaps in this game. I thought Ben Skoranek did good, especially in the running game there. I thought Darnell Washington had a lot of nice run blocks. One flat knocked another one of their linebackers right out of the game. In the first half of this game as well too. So the running game was there. They just were not able to build off of their run success, specifically trying to push the football down the field. They had a lot of independent routes once again. They don't have the contested catchers really outside of Darnell Washington, so to speak there. And the lot of completions that Mason Rudolph did have were once again fewer than 3 yards down the field.
I thought Pittsburgh overall did a good job challenging and taking advantage of the Bears being down so many linebackers, both before the game and then the in-game injuries they suffered, where they ran the ball at will. They ran the ball 36 times. I mean, that's a really high number for Pittsburgh in a game where they trailed for a good chunk of the second half. They used a perimeter pass game. They got Gainwell involved in the pass game. He had 6 catches. He's now tied for the team lead in receptions with DK Metcalf, which is a kind of depressing stat, but it is the stat. So I know that there's some looking for more throws down the seam and down the middle, and we're going to check the tape. But I thought Pittsburgh overall had a good plan against the Bears' battered linebackers. One thing that didn't work well, that's really been a pain point ever since week one. Week one, it was good. It's been bad since, is play action. Play action has been completely not non-existent, but just not an asset to you. You probably had more harm off of play pass than you've had actual success, including Mason Rudolph off of play action, strip sack fumble. That was a big turnover in a really key moment where Pittsburgh was down by 3 in the second half. So play action is just not fooling anyone, and that's really frustrating because you hope to get some explosives off of play action. That's kind of the point of play action, is to get the linebackers, the defense to step up and throw behind them, and it has been just completely ineffective for Pittsburgh for many, many weeks now.
Mason Rudolph against the Bears, 3 for 6 on play action.
For how many yards?
I don't know if I have the total yards here. It wasn't much, though.
Right, and you have included in that the strip sack fumble.
29 yards.
Yeah, I mean, it's just on play action, you want a whole lot more than that.
3 of 6, 29 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception, sacked twice.
Yeah, that's really bad.
And 6 quarterback pressures.
Off of play action or just in total? Just off of play action?
Just off of play action.
Wow. That for a Bears pass rush that had not been great in this entire season, that is frustrating. I know play action can sometimes invite that a little bit more depending on what your scheme is, but still, that's poor. The 2 sacks, Darnell Washington's a really good blocker, but to have him solo on Montez Sweat for 3-4 seconds at a time, that's even asking too much of Darnell Washington. And that's a schematic. And I got to see exactly what happened on those plays. And Washington can certainly hold up in pass pro for moments in time, but to have that happen not just once, but twice, the second leading to that sack fumble, was frustrating.
Just 8 quarterback pressures in total for the Bears in this game, according to Next Gen Stats, and 6 of them came off of play action.
Yeah, but to be 3 of 6 or 29 yards is just not what you're looking for.
Right.
Nothing was really ever there. So
That's why I said that you were able to have the running game, you just weren't able to build off of it.
yeah, in theory, a good run game can aid play action. You don't always need a good run game to make play action work. It's about just selling it. And if you sell it, you don't have to run it well. But Pittsburgh, they probably don't sell play action super well. It's not really threatening anybody, and they're not able to get those big plays off of, obviously, play pass.
And then once again, Mason Rudolph completed just one pass longer than 10 yards down the field, and that was the early one to Ben Skoranek.
Yeah, he had your longest pass play of the game of 21 yards. Jonnu Smith continues to have a minimal role in this offense. 3 catches, 21 yards, a couple of sweeps in this one. It felt very much like high school offense, a lot of perimeter game, RPO game, quick game, tight end runs, that kind of stuff. I still don't really see Jonnu Smith doing much in this game. Pat Frymuth had the late touchdown. That was a good play. Your tight ends, though, I mean, they had some decent numbers if you add them all up, but there really wasn't a whole lot of impact from those guys. Sans the Frymuth touchdown.
Right. What did I write last night? They caught all of their 8 targets, I think the tight ends group in this game, but it was like 8 for 60. Hold on just a minute. I'll get you what I pulled last night out of the raw stats here of this game. They had 8 catches for 62 yards on 8 targets. The tight ends did. The longest reception gain was to Frymuth for 14 yards, and 39 of those 62 yards came after the catch. Now a couple of those receptions came late in the game though as well too.
Yeah, I think so. DK Metcalf, 5 catches, just 22 yards, a long of 8 on 8 targets. Got to find some ways to get this guy unlocked. And I know he was battling the ankle injury. He was not 100% in this game. And obviously, Chicago, every defense is going to look towards taking him away first. But Metcalf has been held at or under 55 yards, I think, in 6 straight games now, 1 touchdown over that span. So just continually, Pittsburgh cannot find ways to get their best offensive receiver the football to make some plays.
All right, but wait, there's more.
Okay.
When you talk about offense and concerning things here, and you wrote about this last night. It was easy to pick up on tape, obviously, late in the game, trailing 31-28 and facing a 3rd and 4 at its own 28 in the 4th quarter, late, obviously. Mason had a scramble. Looked like, oh man, they're actually might get into field or at least give Boswell a chance on an ultra long field goal here. But flag on the play, illegal formation on that one for not covering up right tackle Troy Fautano. The camera showed Aaron Rodgers go surrender Cobra. Prior to this, once Aaron Rodgers easily spotted for Pat Meyer, on the other hand, seemed unfazed.
He was not as aware. And Rodgers is mouthing it too. I didn't realize this until you posted the clip. He's
He
literally
said,
saying it's illegal formation. Yeah.
Oh my God, illegal formation. Or
Right.
something to that effect.
No, that's what he said. Yeah, you're right.
Calvin Austin knew it, I think. Once Gainwell came over in motion there, but the play clock was running down. If Mike Tomlin had seen that, if anybody other than Aaron Rodgers saw that, could you call a timeout there with the play clock ticking down? I know you want to hold on to the timeouts, but I mean, it's either take the timeout or take the penalty on that play. The overarching thing is we're in week 12 of the NFL season. You still have, it's not like you got a lot of new pieces running around out there other than your quarterback, and you're even your
And he's not
quarterback.
new. I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying. He obviously is an experienced guy, but I'm talking about new as far as playing time this year.
Okay.
But it's still
Gotcha.
something that he should have been aware of. Hell, he's the one that sent, I think, Gainwell over. it's kind of weird because you don't see the full play because the way the TV is cutting back and forth and all like that, as far as sideline and all like that. But why are you having illegal formations in not only the question of why are you having illegal formations in games, but specifically in key moments of the game there. And you obviously take a 3rd and 4 situation and turn it into a 3rd and 9 situation.
Talk about an unforced error, an own goal when you don't cover up the right tackle, something that's so basic and just fundamental to football, getting aligned properly in the biggest moment of the game, and it negates that Rudolph scramble that took it to midfield with over 2 minutes to go, and you would have had 3 timeouts and precipice of field goal range. You probably at least tie the game there, maybe even go win it. You're not playing for just a tie. You got a chance to really go steal that game from Chicago. So Rodgers saw it. Seemed like the only one besides Calvin that did. Rudolph didn't. Yeah, that stuff is just so sloppy and shows that that's something good teams don't do. They don't do that in the first place. When they do have those mistakes, they recognize them and they're proactive, and they don't get the penalty for it. They either call a timeout or they just simply get Calvin Austin to move up 4 inches to get a line on the line of scrimmage to cover up for Tanu, so it's not a legal formation. And Pittsburgh did not. So yeah, that one really pisses you off because that's completely in your control. Nothing the defense did there and negated a real opportunity to probably go tie that game, at minimum tie that game, potentially to go win it too.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that one play decided the outcome here, but you don't even give yourself a chance in that situation there for sure. Who knows? I mean, does the exact play unfold even if the way that it did, if the tackle's covered in that yada yada, but in a vacuum, that's that should not happen. That's coaching, and at worst, there the head coach needs to see that, call timeout, and because we've already talked about how this team is on 3rd and long situations this year, and everything that goes along with that. But you definitely took away a probability of win factor on that one penalty and that one penalty alone, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a massive play where if you get the pickup, it's a whole different ball game. Can we talk briefly about the Tomlin decision to punt after that 3rd and 4 turns to 3rd and 9? Pittsburgh, I think, incomplete. I forget exactly what the 3rd down outcome was. Not a conversion. Obviously, Mike Tomlin decides to punt there. It was incomplete to Metcalf. So it's 4th and 9 from the Steelers' own 23 with 2:01 left, down by 3. Have all 3 timeouts. Did you like the decision to punt there? Are you okay with it? What are your thoughts?
I had a feeling they were going to punt. I was hoping they weren't going to punt and go for it there. I kind of got a feeling that Mike's just going to throw his defense out there one last time. How many times have we seen that over the years with Mike Tomlin putting trust in his defense late in those situations, especially when he has all the timeouts left and all like that. I, you know, I think he just went with his gut in there. Personally, I would have liked to have seen them try to go for it, but I'm not overly convinced they would have been able to convert the way the passing game had trouble of pushing the football down the field. It would have probably had to be some sort of short run and catch type deal.
Yeah, I know it worked out, and Tomlin defended it in the end, essentially by looking at the result and saying we got the ball back, and so it all worked out. But that was still the wrong call by Mike Tomlin. You can't let the Bears' offense, which had put up 31 points in this game and certainly had success largely, have that chance to close out the game. And so I know your chances on 4th and 9 maybe aren't great, but even if you don't convert there, you have 3 timeouts. You can hopefully get a stop there in kind of a condensed area of the field, hold them to a field goal, and then you still get the ball back and a chance to go win it. You need a touchdown, obviously, but there's still a chance there. So I think it was still a bad call in terms of the process. I know the results still ultimately worked out in Tomlin's favor, but had on that 2nd down run from Chicago from Benungai, had he not lost his footing on that cutback, he's almost certainly got the 1st down, and Tomlin's going to be under a lot more scrutiny today. So I try to base these things not just off the outcome, which I know we're in an outcome-based league and world, but I try to look at the results and my thoughts in the moment. And my thought was, this is insane that Tomlin is punting it there. But you're right. Tomlin has always been conservative and trust in your defense, and that was very true in that moment.
And to magnify the problem even more, even though it was after the decision, Corliss Waitman lets loose a 33-yard punt.
Yes, Waitman was terrible in this game. His worst game of the season, maybe of his career by far. 3 punts for less than a 40-yard average, none inside the 20, so there was no skew of a coffin corner, quote-unquote, punt that landed inside the 20 that hurts your gross. It was just 3 bad punts. You had the one good punt that was negated by, still to me, a very questionable holding call on Ben Skoranek. I've never seen a gunner get called for holding before because they are not trying to hold. It's the jammers that hold. It's a return team that's trying to hold. And so that wiped out a Waitman punt that was good. And Eccles had a great coverage tackle that really pinned Chicago back. And the ensuing kick was a 30-something yard punt. It was a literal field flipper, about 30 plus yards difference there. So Waitman was really rough in this game.
And you look at the hidden yardage you lost, with that 33-yard punt. Even if you get a 3 and out and all like they did, and get the football back, you weren't able to get an extra 10, 12, at least maybe extra yards by having a bad punt on top of a bad decision.
It was literally 30 yards because even if there had been no penalty on the play, it would have been at the 10-yard line. And then on the re-kick, Chicago got it at the 40. So a 30-yard difference on that
penalty. No, I'm
penalty.
talking about the Waitman punt after late in the game.
Oh, late in the game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, at the 2-minute warning there. The 33-yard punt, the hidden.
Sure.
I mean, there are 2 situations. I mean, but even so, it's you're right. It's 2 situations there where some hidden yardage is lost in both those situations.
No, I understand. Just confirming that it was 30 yards on the earlier punt. But yeah, Waitman punted that one further back, and then let's say the situation plays out again where the Bears go 3 and out and they got to punt it back and you get an extra 15 yards, then maybe they are in field goal range by the time that drive wraps up. So yeah, that is a great point about the hidden yardage.
Right there. And then even after you get the quick 3 and out by the Bears after that decision, because of the field not getting flipped, Taylor's able to punt the ball into the end zone. I know he wasn't trying to. Thank God Calvin Austin made a good decision to let that one go in. But, I mean, it's a touchback in that situation, and you're starting on an 80-yard field.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. Across the board, a lot of hidden yardage lost in this game. Offensively, what were some of the positives? You ran the ball well. You had the fake tush push. And listen, I'll own that. I said repeatedly on this podcast, let's just keep pushing forward. Let's not try to do some sort of variation of the tush push. We talked about Arthur Smith's counterpunch comments, and was he teasing something? And he certainly did. Gainwell taking the handoff from Connor Hayward, running sweep right side for 55 yards, nearly scoring. Jaylen Warren punching it in on the next play. So it's a really gutsy call there, but it doesn't work. Obviously, you're going to get completely flogged for it. So great play call, great execution of it, and a huge play there.
Right. What about the tush push ahead of the prior to that? And was the whistle blown too quick? What? It looked like the whole snap timing was off, and I don't know. Did they blow the whistle a little bit too soon for forward progress there? No, just it looked funky, especially over the top view of it, right at the snap.
It was, yeah. The snap timing was certainly delayed, and I don't know what happened there. It looked like Hayward got it on second effort, but that play's been so tough to officiate and just kind of a mess this year. Some are speculating, and I get why, that Hayward was supposed to hand it off to Gainwell on that play, and that there was some miscommunication there. You could see after the snap that Hayward was really kind of scolding Kenneth Gainwell about something. We don't know what. It was not addressed post-game. Watching it back, I don't think the design was to give the ball to Gainwell in that first tush push. If you watch the blocking of Fautanu, of Darnell Washington, they're blocking forward. They don't block that way on the actual handoff that Gainwell received. So I don't know if there was an issue of Gainwell not pushing in time or having some other error, but I don't think the intent was to give to Gainwell on that first play.
Okay.
But there was some issue there.
All 22 on that once the full reel comes out.
Well, the TV tape shows an overhead view of that first play. And also the second one, because the CBS broadcast was terrible. Can we just be honest about that? They missed the Gainwell 55-yarder. We caught it halfway through. Had no idea. I thought it was a fake punt for a second. Like, I didn't know what was happening until they showed the replay of that thing. So the broadcast was really bad with a lot of bad cuts and angles and just kind of a unusually poor production by CBS Sports.
Right, and even on the legal formation, right, they cut kind of late to it.
Yeah, it was a real mess across the board. Eagle and Watt were great, but everything else was terrible from a truck camera production standpoint. So anything else here, Dave, offensively, any other positives or any other negatives? Offensive line, how did you think the O-line played overall?
I thought the O-line, as for the most part, I thought played a pretty good game. Look, the running game obviously was there, and you were getting some yards there. I thought pass protection, for the most part, seemed to be okay. Obviously, the couple of the sack, you hit on Darnell Washington versus Sweat there, and a lot of snafus there when the Steelers ran play action there. But I thought for the most part, the offensive line did their part. This was just more of a schematic execution thing, especially in the passing game. And once again, when you have Mason Rudolph's average completed air yard distance of well under 3 in this game, and your most exciting plays you had was the early one to Ben Skoranek and the pass interference on Calvin Austin. You're trying to nickel and dime this thing through the running game. And it was a bright spot on kind of the trick tush push there. So kudos to them on that. I mean, once again, the offense I thought ran the football effectively overall. I would have liked to seen them run the ball when you split it up between first half and second half. I was expecting as good as they ran in the first half, to kind of carry over into the second half, and unfortunately, it was less production there. You did have a couple of successful quarterback sneaks by Mason Rudolph. Unfortunately, the scramble that he had was negated by the legal formation there. So, back to the offensive line. I thought overall the offensive line did their part. And I once again, I like the wrinkle of putting Spencer Anderson in the backfield as a fullback. I think for the most part they were successful with those plays.
Yeah, Anderson was a lot of fun. That all 22 is going to be a lot of fun to review. He really was versatile as a fullback. He even had some receiver alignment, standing up in a true receiver stance and then motioning in for some lead plays, which were some really critical conversions there. They were really kind of pairing the front side kind of Zorro toss game with Washington and Anderson, and some backside counters too, with Anderson as one of those pullers. And so they really did some fun, inventive things there. And it's obvious why they had Anderson remain as that 6th offensive lineman in that game in which Isaac Seumalo did not play, and had Pete going at left guard, as unusual and kind of funky as that was, because they really value what Anderson can do on the perimeter and his athleticism and his versatility. And so he's become a really valuable member of this offense. So that was, I thought, really creative and good in some of the highlights of this offense. One low light that continues to bug me, and Arthur Smith has touched on it a couple times throughout the season. Pittsburgh is so good at scoring late in the first half. They've done that repeatedly throughout this year, but they can't double dip. They can't get that score out of the third quarter. And that happened again in this game. Get the Gainwell touchdown, or the Gainwell long run, the Warren touchdown, end of the first half. You then fall apart. You then allow points by Chicago to end the half. You want to be the team that gets the final points of the first half. You don't. And so Chicago gets that field goal at the end of the half. And then start of the third quarter, you get the ball. You go 6 plays for a grand total of 1 yard, and you punt. And it started with the bad field position. You start on your own 25-yard line. You get 1 first down on 3rd and 1, and then you first 10, I think, play pass, sack, 2nd and 14, a run, 3rd and 10, deep shot to Wilson, which I think Wilson had to break up because it was almost picked by Wright for a second interception of the game. And then you had the Waitman punt, the penalty on Skoranek, the repunt, the 30 yards of hidden yardage there. The Bears get the ball with great field position. They go down the field, they score, they take the lead, they never give it back. That whole sequence is really a turning point of this game. So you just can't come out of the third quarter strong. That's been the case throughout this season, and it certainly was here. And Arthur Smith, how many times did he run on 2nd and 10 plus? At least 3 in this game, which was maddening.
All right, let's go back to one key stat that they showed early in the game there. The Steelers now have gone 61 games of scoring 7 or fewer points in the first quarter. That
Yeah,
seems hard to do, doesn't it?
well, it's what, the second longest streak ever? I forget. I think I looked up the longest streak. Wasn't it the Giants? I think what is the record? I think I looked this up at some point. It was kind of a hard stat to track down, but I wonder how close they are to the record. I think they're still a ways away, but yeah, it is. You would think he would stumble into 10 points at some point along the way.
Hmm. So there's that, and let's circle this thing all the way back to kind of the housekeeping portions, or really the decision with Aaron Rodgers overall, and kind of address, I guess, a question that's already I've seen surface on social media. If Aaron Rodgers starts and plays in this game, what happens?
I don't know. We can spend a lot of time guessing and debating about that.
Does it feel like the game plan would have, and we said this going into it, it doesn't feel like schematically, or game plan wise that it would have been much different between the two quarterbacks. And Mike Tomlin, for whatever reason, decided to be ultra secretive on this. And we kind of said at the beginning of the week there, well, at least they have to prepare for two quarterbacks and all like that. But did they really? Especially the way the offense, game plans have been.
Yeah, I think the game plan would have been virtually the same. How much better would Rodgers have been executing it? Maybe to some degree, but I don't sit there saying that, yes, Pittsburgh definitely wins this one. I wonder on that final drive, though, does Rodgers get Pittsburgh in some better situations? He would have noticed the illegal formation. There would have been, I think, that element that he would have certainly added. And could Rodgers have been able to make some plays on that last drive that Rudolph didn't. Move the ball early on soft coverage, and then once the Bears tighten up, Rudolph's throwing 3-yard slants to Austin and Metcalf. I know there might not be a whole lot there, but you can't be running 3-yard slants when you have no timeouts, the clock is ticking. So it just, and the last fourth down play, like I said, even if that was not batted by Brisker off the blitz, that's probably picked off by Chicago, at the very least broken up. So certainly wonder what would have been on that last drive had Rodgers been in the game, but I think overall the game plan would have been pretty similar.
Are you okay with the decision to go with Mason there?
Still with pretty limited information, it's hard to really disagree. I think Tomlin opened up to Jake Glazer about some of the specifics on the injury. It's funny that, Tomlin on Friday is saying, what is medically clear? You guys, that's too vague of a term, which I don't think is too vague of a term. I think it's a pretty clear what medical clearance is. And then he gives like a, anatomy breakdown to Jake Glazer later about displacement of the fracture and that kind of stuff. But there was still some concern there about making that injury worse. Apparently, it was the bottom line on Rodgers. There was a risk of further injury. And so based on that alone, I understand and I'm okay with Rodgers not playing. The fact he didn't even dress in this game would indicate Pittsburgh really did not want him playing under any circumstances, which speaks to, I think, more of a medical issue than it would be about an effectiveness issue.
Mike Tomlin, earlier in the week, basically said, he's okay with Aaron Rodgers not getting reps and not worried about that aspect, but then goes on to say after the game, Aaron really didn't have many reps during the week, right?
Yeah, it's a little up both sides of your mouth. But again, I think the issue was not about functionality. It was about the health of Rodgers. Because if he was medically cleared, he would have probably been the third string quarterback at the least, right?
Mhm. Oh yeah,
Just to have that. So the
Just
fact that he
just
was
to
in
have somebody that can hand off,
right. So the fact he was in total street clothes, I think. I mean, I don't know if that's an optics thing too. They don't want like the shots of Rodgers dressed and feeling like he's not playing because of some sort of coach's decision. And just not that wouldn't have been the case, but that's
I
just the
don't give
optics
a
of it.
crap about
No, I know.
optics.
I
You
know.
know,
I'm just brainstorming.
a break glass in case of emergency. At least you get a guy in there that can run the offense and hand the damn football off.
Sure. They did run Wildcat with Gainwell
Yeah.
one time, so that would have been probably plan C had they needed a third option if there was issues with Rudolph and Howard. But bottom line is, I think that Rodgers not dressing spoke to the medical concern, and if that is the concern, then obviously that's fine with him not playing. I don't know what's going to change for Sunday against Buffalo. I imagine the fracture's still there. I kind of had that question posed to you last week, but I guess time will heal that thing, then they'll see where he's at, and Tomlin expects him to play against Buffalo.
Mike Tomlin said, I anticipate Rodgers being ready for next week. It was a prudent decision to make. Certainly it wasn't a fluid week for him. It was a fluid week for Mason in terms of reps, and so I think it'll be in our rear view as we move forward. I'm hopeful of that. And then just on Tuesday, he talked about Aaron Rodgers. He's the type of guy that doesn't that has the type of profile that doesn't require a lot of physical work and an effort to be ready to play, and that's helpful. So this all came down to them just, they did not want Aaron in a situation where he had to take any snaps, period. And thus he did not. And, Jerry Dulac ahead of the game said Aaron's going to be, that was the only question about 2 hours ahead of kickoff at that point was, well, is Aaron just at least going to be the emergency third quarterback? And Jerry Dulac reported he was, and then lo and behold, the official inactive sheet, somebody on the Bears side posted the release of the actual photo release, paper release of that, and he's not listed as the third quarterback in there, and obviously did not dress and everything along, from that point forward there. But yeah, what is going to be different within, and look, I had said before the game that my gut was that Aaron would play, but I wasn't so sure that the right call wouldn't be, if you trust Mason Rudolph that much, to just go ahead and start him, and play him, especially if you have any concerns whatsoever about Aaron Rodgers protecting himself. Well, we will obviously see how that turned out. They did not want Aaron in that game particularly. And I also did say, though, well, at least if they did go with Rudolph, that it at least gives you 1 week of healing time. But when you do look at this and you do wonder ahead, how much is 7 extra days going to matter?
Right.
And how serious or not serious? I mean, it was serious enough that they did not even put him in uniform, as emergency number 3. So how is this going to fast forward into next Sunday against the Bills? And are we potentially 1 quarterback ahead away and him landing wrong on that thing from Mason Rudolph being back in there?
Yeah, it's fair. Obviously, we don't know what the medical specifics and details, so I can't tell you exactly what's going to be different in a week, but something is different apparently in the team's mind, that he'll be ready for Buffalo. So we'll see what it looks like. We'll see what Tomlin says during his press conference on Tuesday. Hey, one fun quirk. Let's get to know the emergency third string quarterback rule for anyone wondering. If the emergency third string quarterback ever enters the game, no one else can take a snap with a football. So you could not run the Connor Hayward tush push if your emergency third string quarterback was ever in the game. Little fun fact if it ever comes up.
I can't run Wildcat or anything, right?
Yeah, the only person that can take the snap if the emergency third string quarterback is in the game is that quarterback. No one else is allowed to take the snap. And also, I think Dulac said that once the emergency third string quarterback is in the game, no one else can go back in. That is incorrect. The quarterback 1 or quarterback 2 are permitted to re-enter if healthy and cleared if the emergency third string quarterback is in the game. So a lot of misinformation out there about the third string quarterback rule, but there's some fun facts for you. Hopefully never needed, but there you go.
Wait, say that again? I thought that once the number 3 quarterback comes into the game, the other 2 cannot return.
Nope. I'll pull up the rule here, unless there was some sort of update. But according to the 2023 rule book, I'll send you the link here on this. They can go back in. Yeah, if they're medically cleared, they can go back into the game.
Okay.
I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Unless there was some sort of update, but according to the 2023 NFL rule book, that is, which makes sense if a quarterback is cleared and healthy, if the quarterback is going in just for health reasons. The question is, after an emergency third quarterback enters the game, are quarterback 1 or quarterback 2 permitted to return to that game? The answer is yes. If either quarterback 1 or quarterback 2 are evaluated for injury and cleared to return, either may re-enter the game.
Okay. All right.
So your third quarterback and you get to know the rule. That is
was
yet
a
to actually
bylaw change then, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess it'd be a bylaw change. I don't remember exactly what that.
I don't
how that
remember
rule was
the
codified.
original. I remember the original rule. I thought being different than that.
It. I don't know. It's 2023. I think that's when the rule was instituted, or thereabouts. Maybe I don't know exactly, but
Okay.
that is my understanding of the rule as it sits today. No team has ever actually had to do that since that rule was implemented. Correct? I don't think there's ever been a situation where the emergency third string quarterback has actually had to enter a game. Has there? Not even just Pittsburgh, which has not been the case, but
Oh,
any
I
NFL
don't know.
team.
I'd have to look. I don't know off the top of my
I feel
head.
like we would remember if that was the case. But anyway, should be hopefully moot for the rest of the season. All right, Dave. Any other
Yeah,
thoughts here?
one other thought here
Hmm.
on the illegal formation and all like that. Uh, had Mason Rudolph seen that, should he have called timeout, regardless of what the sideline's doing? Should Mason have called a timeout if he had recognized the illegal formation?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think you tried to get Austin on the ball and just say push up because if he gets on the line, then you're good. But
Right, but the play clock was running down at that
sure.
point by the time, Calvin's got his hand out, Calvin saw it, Aaron Rodgers saw it, nobody else saw it, right?
Right. Yeah. So, okay, putting that worst case, call the timeout. Absolutely. Yeah, you burned a timeout, and you hate to be in a situation where you have two timeouts and needing a drive, and if Chicago ever gets the ball back, you're in a tough spot. But yeah, of course you call a timeout there if you're not in the right foot.
Right,
It's a huge play. You
right,
need to be in the right play there.
right. Alright, we're in agreement there.
Anything else? I'm just trying to think. That's basically all I got.
Alright, that's all I got. Special teams, real quick, we already talked about punting being bad and the penalty, unfortunate on Skoranek. You had one, the bouncing football on Gainwell that, was kinda muffed and then took off with.
Yeah, which brought you to the 5, which the kick return team was bad, had 4 returns for an average of 15.8 yards along the 26. The Bears did a great job. Santos did have that knuckler, and that is a real weapon. The teams that can master that, like Chicago, I think there were teams earlier this year that have been doing that, maybe Buffalo and I don't know, the Saints or something like that. Teams that can really master that have a real advantage.
Alright, a real three-phase loss here. Congratulations.
Yeah, it really was. That's a good way to sum it up. It was a three-phase loss and a L, the fifth of the year, as Pittsburgh, as you said, out of first place in the division, now currently out of the playoff picture in terms of not being one of the top 7 seeds with a tough schedule ahead.
Alright, this is just a mid team, right? This is a very, very mid team, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like I said earlier, top of the show, to echo what Jay Gruden said, I'll ask you the question. I think I already know the answer to, but I'll ask it the same, maybe rhetorically. What scares you about this Pittsburgh Steelers team? If you're Buffalo getting ready for this game, what scares you about the Steelers?
Nothing.
Yeah, and I mean the edge rushers to a degree, Watt and Herbig and Highsmith, but the pressure has been pretty inconsistent, and you can do some things to really take away that pressure and feel like your pass game can still have success.
Yeah, and look, what's the answer to the Steelers' pass rush? Get the ball out quick. We see it time in and
Hmm.
time out. We just already hit on Caleb Williams, a guy that traditionally holds on to the football a long time, has his second quickest time to throw, and we've seen this throughout the season, right? This isn't earth shattering week in to week out to all of a sudden say, "Oh man, look how quick he got the ball out this week."
Right, yeah, Williams had a 3.29 snap to throw time coming into this game, and you said 2.6 seconds on average.
2.6 something, I think. Yeah.
So that is definitely the book on Pittsburgh for sure.
And Josh Allen's so big, he don't care how long it takes. But I would imagine that Josh Allen's going to get the ball out a little bit quicker this next week as well too. And the Bills are banged up a little bit going into this game, but so too were the Bears.
Right, right. All right, Dave. Any other final thoughts? Any other late breaking news? If not, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show. No live stream tonight, just part of our regular schedule, but just announcing that for those still listening.
All right. I don't even know where to start here. We got a bunch of unhappy people here. Let's start with Deshaun Campbell. Sup, guys? Man, I'm sure the 49ers wish they would have just accepted the Steelers' offer on Brandon Ayuk. Things seem to have been gotten real messy real quick over there. My question is how does a team void your guarantees in a contract? I thought guarantees were guaranteed. What that the players fight for that, and if you void the guaranteed money, but not all the full contract does, that still leaves you with the dead money. Look, he's getting, there are stipulations within these contracts when it comes to guaranteed money about, you know, basically breaking some certain rules and all like that. And it's obvious that Brandon Ayuk has voided his own guarantees by being around practices and team activities and all like that as part of his rehab, right? So,
Yeah, it
so
seems like
there's
that.
there's language in there within these guarantees that allows team to void the guarantees if the player does not hold up their end of the volume. This is just not the 49ers saying, "Oh, we're just voiding them." Uh, Brandon Ayuk did not live up to certain aspects tied to those guarantees that got his contract voided.
Sure, there has to be cause to void, and apparently there is. There may be a dispute. There could be arbitrators and grievances. That's all for them to handle, but that seems to be a divorce ready to happen.
Right. So they're not just voiding it to void it. They have cause and it's written cause on top of that included in those guarantees. Uh, don't even open up the can of Ayuk worms right now. We'll have plenty of time to discuss that. I could see him landing with the Steelers if Mike Tomlin's still coaching this team somehow, some way next season. But let's not even go there right now. Jonathan Mason writes in, David Alex, I have been a big Tomlin defender over the years, but it seems that he is handicapping this team in terms of his overall conservative approach. Despite the coordinator change and different quarterbacks, the offense avoids the middle of the field in an effort to limit turnovers. I don't think that adding a number two or drafting a quarterback high next year will fix things until this approach is changed from the top down, not to mention emphasizing spending money on defense and relying on players to make plays instead of scheme to help the players. My question is, do you think missing the playoffs this year would be enough for Rooney to let Tomlin go? He says, I do like Tomlin, but I'm tired of the same product year over year at this point. Jonathan, uh, let's get to the root of this thing, and I will say this. Uh, this team just continues to be very, very mid, year in and year out for the last several years here. If ever there were a time, and I said this within the last couple of weeks, I think a couple of times, if ever there was a time to push the hard reset button, this offseason might just be it, especially if this team collapses and does not make the playoffs. And even if they get in and get blown out in the first round of the playoffs somehow, some way, if ever there was a time to make a clean break and reset this thing, it would be after this season.
What makes this time the time as opposed to
Just
the other times?
you got an aging defense at an ever aging defense at this point. You got an offense that basically is just an offensive line, young offensive line at this point. You're going to continue to have quarterback questions. At this point, I don't know how you feel about Rodgers at this point, but and this comes on the heels of him not playing. I think this should be it for Aaron Rodgers, personally. I think Aaron is who he is at this point, and to me, I think you got to just get more of the same if Aaron comes back and all. At some point, you got to start making a direction of trying to find this team's next franchise quarterback. And
Well, you can
no,
do both. I mean, you can do both.
yeah, but I mean, how much if this team ends up even if Will Howard, even if this team doesn't draft a quarterback in the first round, or even if they do, I said this I think earlier in the year as well too. I just don't see Mike Tomlin leaning into a young quarterback to start the 2026 season.
It's not his preference, I don't think. But I'm saying you can still find a franchise quarterback. You can still explore that and bring back Aaron Rodgers or insert veteran cast off
But
here.
what does that get you? Well,
I mean, okay, then what do you want them to do with quarterback? If it's not a rookie, if it's not Aaron Rodgers, then what are you looking for at quarterback next year?
Well, I mean, what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to see some youth in there.
Okay, well, I mean, you said that
Well,
Tomlin doesn't want to do it and
right,
won't
right.
he have to do
But
it?
you're asking what I would do. I don't
Yeah.
think Tomlin would lean into it. I would
Okay.
lean into it.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. They also play Kenny Pickett 4 games in. I mean, so they've been willing to go to young quarterbacks
Sure, but they
in the
didn't start the
past.
season with him.
No, but they made a pretty quick change to Pickett. We'll have a whole offseason to kind of
Right.
discuss that. On Rodgers, I'll let the whole season play out. You know, he's played some bad ball the last couple weeks. We'll see how he bounces back, and he played some good ball early in the season. So let's let the whole let's have all the hay in the barn. Let's see what happens to A. Does Rodgers want to come back? B, is Arthur Smith the OC? Does he get a job somewhere else? What's his situation? Those are all things that have to be answered, I think, before we start kind of piecing together this quarterback picture. You know, on Tomlin and Rooney,
I
I'll
know which
just
way you're going to answer the other part of this question. Do you think missing the playoffs this year would be enough for Rooney to let Tomlin go?
not currently. No, I'll echo what I wrote about a couple weeks ago, responding to the trade ideas and rumors that I think if you want to talk about the quote unquote right time, it's after 2026 for a variety of reasons I lay out in the article about his contract and Hayward and the defense and Rodgers and the coaching market and all that kind of stuff. And so if there was a time, if that ever comes, I think it would be after next season as opposed to after this season. I know no one wants to hear that, but I think to answer the question, would Rooney do it? It's unlikely in any scenario, but if he does do something, I think it would come after next year.
I think if ever there was time to do anything with the head coach, it would be after this season, especially if they collapse, don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, there's like if they lose out, then it's a different conversation. But I mean, next year will be Tom going into the last year of his contract, be a lame duck kind of thing there. In terms of after next year, after 2026, you'd have Cam Hayward. His career likely would be done. Aaron Rodgers would be definitely gone 100%, no matter what happens this offseason. TJ Watt would be older. Jalen Ramsey would be older. That would be a time to probably reset.
I mean, how at this point, and I don't want to get ahead of our skis because we always tamp down stuff like this overall, especially with, we still got 6 games left in the season, yada, yada. But how much even optimism do you have towards 2026 right now?
I really haven't thought about it at all, but what is your optimism for 2025 is kind of where I'm at, and it's pretty
It's not great,
bleak.
Bob.
Not great. Now, you still have 2 games. If you can beat Baltimore, and you certainly have beaten Baltimore before, you played better against Lamar than most teams have. Lamar's not running the way that he has in the past, so that's one element that Pittsburgh can really take to their advantage and hone in on Derrick Henry more after Henry's really burned them in recent games. There's big ifs, but you still have 2 games against Baltimore. If you can win those, you're still really in this race.
Well, it feels like anything with this team getting in the playoffs and all at this point now does indeed revolve around be at least beating the Ravens twice, and then you still might need some help outside of that.
Yeah, but to be the most optimistic guy in the room for just to wear that hat for the moment. I'm not saying I'm in that position, but just to put on that hat. Buffalo is not the same old Buffalo. They got their problems too. There's a lot of issues in Buffalo that's similar to Pittsburgh right now about why this offense not working, this defense is underperforming, and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of soul searching going on there as well. You have the Browns. You got 2 games against Baltimore. I mean, the Dolphins are beatable at home. So there's certainly games you can still win.
All right, Craig Sampson writes in, "Hi, Dave and Alex, best duo, always getting me through tough days with Steelers content. I typically agree with both of you. However, I have to disagree with Alex on the whole concept of expecting takeaways versus expecting Aaron Rodgers to throw a TD. They are not the same," he says. "I think it's an interesting argument. Getting defensive turnover in the NFL is way harder than scoring a TD," he says. "A TD is something that's created where your offense designs a play and executes it and finishes a drive. It's repeatable. A turnover is mostly chance," he writes. You're waiting on the other team to screw up, a bad throw, a fumble, a tip, and even then the ball has to bounce your way. A defense can try to create turnovers, but it ultimately depends on the offense making a mistake. An example is baking a cake. If you follow the steps and do it well, you get a good result. Getting a turnover is like waiting for your neighbor to burn their cake so you can eat it. It might happen, but you can't plan on it.
Well, I think in Pittsburgh, they've had more takeaways than passing touchdowns in recent years. So just to humorize the point there. But my point was less about passing touchdowns. My point was to say you could look at any team's strength and say, if you take that away, how do they win? That was the broader point I was trying to make. Maybe I didn't articulate that super well in the moment, but you could take away any team's strength and wonder how they're going to win without said strength. I still disagree on the premise that turnovers are chance. I think in the same way that you bake a cake offensively, if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll get a good result. Defensively, if you bake a cake, do X, Y, and Z, and execute that recipe, then you're going to get good results. I don't believe there are chances. There is some element of luck in terms of bouncing football, but I think running to the football and ball searching and creating those forced fumbles in the first place are all part of it. Go look at the Caleb Williams sacked fumble in that one. You go back to the looks that John Rice Plumlee gave, good scout team looks at how Caleb Williams operates and him spinning out and how you take advantage of that. And that manifests itself into the game on Sunday. That is, it may look like luck and chance. So he fumbled and Herbert was right there and landed on the football. Oh, what great luck. But to me, that you make your own luck. You create your own good fortune. So I'll die on that hill. We'll agree to disagree because I think turnovers certainly is something that you can put ingrained in your culture and have a mentality, and you can create those more if you practice it more and rep it more and preach it more. And if you don't, you're not going to get those things. So I think it's very much a thing that is, not as controllable as offensive touchdowns, sure, but certainly something Pittsburgh and teams can control and influence to get more or less of.
All right, we got a lot of the same thing in here. I'll read. Obviously, a lot of people upset and all like that. I'll read one more for time reasons here. DK Metcalf from Ted Webb in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Maybe it's just me, and I know some of the passes are underthrown by the quarterback when going deep passes to Metcalf, but at 6'4", like 230, I feel like DK doesn't high point the ball or flat out gets out muscled by smaller DBs. I know why we got rid of Pickens, mostly because of his attitude in the locker room, but I do know one thing: when it's a 50-50 ball, it's like 80-20 with Pickens, and with DK, it's like 30-70, it feels like. How do we get DK more involved, maybe putting him in motion more maybe? Look, I mean, George Pickens is obviously a better contested ball catcher than DK Metcalf, right?
Yeah, no question about that. That's never been Metcalf's real strength in terms of the 50-50 go up and out jump your opponent, which is disappointing given his frame. He is more the stack and run by you kind of a guy. So that's what you're looking for. You want to put the ball out in front as opposed to up and let Metcalf go up there and jump for it. So more slants, more bunches, more of those deep throws out in front. Those are the keys for DK Metcalf.
And how do you go about getting DK more touches? I think you saw him try to kind of manufacture a couple of those in this game yesterday, right?
Yeah, there certainly was a share of screens, and you had the quick game and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't for a lack of effort to get DK the football yesterday, but the results just have not been there, and they need to be there for a guy that is such a clear weapon. And with other guys not producing a whole lot, the lack of production has been extremely disappointing.
I'll leave you with this. DK Metcalf is now on pace for 65 receptions for
Okay.
886 yards.
I was waiting for you to make a comment like that. Yeah, I know you hate hearing it, Dave, but you might be right in this one, in this
What?
prediction.
Wait, what?
I'm only saying it that one time. You can
Look,
go back and rewind it.
I'm not right until I'm right, but that's sad, right?
It'll be very disappointing if he's under 900 yards, especially for how well he began the season. He began the year on a pace easily to eclipse 1,000 yards. And it's not just, oh, he's had a bad stretch or, here's a dud of a game. It's his last, 6 games. Here's his receiving yardage total: 50, 55, 6, 35, 49, 22 for your best pass catcher. That is embarrassing.
All right. I also posted this last night. No context, but more of a troll, I guess, than anything. But I mean, just it jumped out of me while going through some stats and all. So just take this as is. We all know a lot of the reasons behind it. We know how this would change if George Pickens was still in Pittsburgh, yada, yada. George Pickens now has 67 receptions for 1,054 yards. All the Steelers wide receivers combined right now have 84 catches for 1,082 yards.
Yeah, that hurts a lot. And like you said, we know why Pickens was traded, and if he had stayed in Pittsburgh, he would not have put up those numbers, but that hurts. There's no question.
All right. Anything else coming in? Anything else you'd like to add before we get out of here on this Monday?
No, I think that covers it pretty well. Players will speak today, Tomlin tomorrow, be back on Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll get back into the same old here, and hopefully the outcomes start changing on game days. Tough game coming up on Sunday at home against the Bills. I think last night, as of last night, the Bills were 4.5-point road favorites over the Steelers going into this one. So we'll get the injury reports together on Wednesday, or at least recap what Tomlin said about injuries. We'll hopefully have the all 22 have gone through to nitpick a little bit more about this loss to the Bears. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter and X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. So, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.